Welcome to We Are Old, Get Over It, the podcast where we celebrate the wisdom of age and maybe a little grumbling too. And we're going to get started now. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be speaking about touring for seniors. And my guest today is Jack Messimer.
Jake.
How did I say that badly, right? Okay, good.
Jake.
What did I say? Jack?
You did.
You know what? I screw up almost every time because I don't look at my notes. Well,
you did that on purpose, Ken.
Of course I did. Yeah, right. If you believe that, then you can believe the rest of this podcast. Anyway.
Great.
Okay. So we're ready to start the podcast now. And I like to start with a quote first, and I like to kind of end at a quote. You don't have to respond to the quote. It's fine. There's no test on this.
Okay.
A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. And that was by Oliver Wendell Holmes. And I think that might apply to what we're going to speak about today. And my guest is Jake. And Jake's going to give us a little background on what he does and how it benefits seniors to go on tours, and what the pitfalls are and what the positive things are and the best times. And he's going to have all kinds of great information. And I've got virtually none, as you know. So I'm just going to let him speak. And I'm just going to, every once in a while, wake myself up and ask him a question. Okay, Jake?
That sounds great. Ken, thank you so much for having me. Hello
My
to everyone listening to this. It's an honor to be on the show. This is a new experience for me, so hopefully this is useful and entertaining information. So again, my name is Jake Messimer. I work with a company called Grand European Travel, and we are based in the Portland, Oregon area, just outside of Portland, Oregon. And I've been in the travel industry, honestly, for most of my adult life. I started when I was 20 years old and have been in the industry ever since. And it's obviously a very fun industry to be in. It can be very challenging. There are a lot of interesting things that happen, and I like coming into work knowing that everything in the world that happens can kind of affect my day in both a good and a bad way, and that makes things very, very exciting. It's also exciting to come into work every day and think about travel. I mean, what more fun could you have in your career than to think about the world, think about all the beautiful places that people can go, help them see the world. It's incredibly rewarding, and as someone who loves travel, it couldn't be a better fit for me.
How many times do you actually go on trips yourself in a year?
Really a couple of trips. I try to do maybe one or two smaller domestic trips and then a big international trip at least once a year. I would certainly love to go more, but usually just getting the time off and everything, usually it's one big international trip. So, for example, last year I went to Japan. I just came back from a trip in Canada, which isn't terribly far afield from where I live, but that was a wonderful, wonderful trip. And that was done actually on one of the tours that my company does. So I have kind of a mix of traveling on my own and also traveling on the tour products that my company sells. And I think I have a pretty good perspective on the pros and cons of both kinds. And I think, I'm here to talk about the kinds of trips that my company sells, but I'm not here to pretend that, doing things on your own isn't also rewarding and fun. I think there can be, they fit into different goals that you have for your particular trip. I mean, if you just want to go sit on a beach somewhere or maybe spend a week in one city, that's not exactly the kind of thing my company does. We sell tours, as you said at the beginning. Now, what is a tour? A tour is multiple cities, you're guided, you're with a group, and there's a lot of benefits to going that way. You do sacrifice a little bit of flexibility, but you're leaving your trip up to the experts, and it's just an incredibly rich educational and rewarding experience to go on a tour.
Okay. One thing I want to bring up right now is, why are more and more seniors traveling, and why are more and more seniors taking tours? And you kind of touched on that, being the fact that things are taken care of for you. Uh, Give us an example of what it takes on one of your trips, let's say overseas, maybe to Europe or to the Far East. Uh, what how it gets started with them meeting you on the phone or your organization, and then the entire process of getting on the tour, and then the actual experience of the tour. So could you help me with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, many of our customers find us through our website. We're kind of old fashioned in this way. We still mail paper catalogs, which people like. And if anyone's interested, you can head on over to our website at www.getours.com and you can order one of those catalogs to be sent to you. But people find us in a variety of ways. We're also a preferred provider to AARP. And a lot of our customers come to us through there. Of course, AARP is an advocacy organization for the needs of older Americans, and we've been with them actually for about 15 years. And they give us a pretty rigorous test every couple of years to make sure we're still serving their customers to the best of their standards. And we've passed with flying colors every couple of years. We're very proud to say. But anyway, to answer your question, people find us. Usually they call us. We have 10 fantastic experts in our office in Portland, Oregon, who have between them something like 120 years of travel industry experience. And we help you find a trip. And there's hundreds of trips to almost every continent, many countries around the world, and the trips range anywhere from a week up to almost a month. And we help you figure out what your goals are. We help you figure out where you want to go, what you want to do, what kind of pace you want to go at. And we just have these kind of good conversations. I think that's one of the things we pride ourselves on is we're real people. We want to talk to you. We want to find out what it is you want to get out of your vacation, and then we kind of go from there, and we can recommend some of our favorite trips for you. So for example, for someone maybe who's never been to Europe and wants to go for the first time and can't really decide on a particular place, we have an incredible trip that's actually, I was just looking at the stats, it's our best selling trip this year. So there must be a lot of first time travelers. As you said, more and more people are traveling, right? And so this trip is called the European Whirl. And just off the top of my head, it goes to London, Amsterdam, comes down through Germany, spends some time in Switzerland, spends time a whole week in Italy, goes to France. And as I'm saying this, you can imagine, think about actually planning this out yourself, finding hotels that are good quality, figuring out how to get from place to place, wondering about money, wondering about the language. I mean, once you start pulling that thread and unraveling all the pieces that go into it, it becomes very stressful to think about, which is certainly not what people want out of a vacation. So, we book your flights if you want. You can book your own flights if you want. It's up to you. But we book your flights. You fly over there. Someone generally will be there to pick you up at the airport, which, that's a big factor. People are tired. I can't sleep on a plane, so I'm not exactly in my best shape when I get somewhere overseas. And someone's there to pick you up, take you to that first hotel, and then you meet your travel director. And I'm going to talk about that a lot today. Your travel director is your friend in a foreign country. So you're going somewhere where maybe you don't speak the language, you don't know how things work, and they are experts in that area. They do speak the language. They often live in those areas or are from those areas, and they're going to be with you from beginning to end. They are your guide. They take care of things. And, travel, there's so many different pieces to it, and so many things can change.
And
And
so many things can go wrong.
so many things can go wrong. And people go, well, how can you guarantee that nothing will go wrong? Well, that's sort of a silly question. Nothing, no one can guarantee that nothing will go wrong, but what we can guarantee is that you have an expert on your side. We have a team of people. We have actually offices in multiple places in Europe who are there monitoring conditions, changing things that need to be changed. And I'm telling you, it's incredible what they're able to do when you're on one of these trips. Oftentimes the people on the trip don't even know anything has gone wrong. The museum staff went on strike. The museum we're supposed to go to on this trip, they went on strike and the museum's closed today. Well, the travel director will just switch things around. You'll do something else today and tomorrow you'll go to the museum, and it's pretty seamless. So you get a lot out of the trip. Along the way, you'll also meet local guides, and we think that really enriches your experience because your travel director knows a lot about these places, but there's no replacement for someone who grew up in a certain town, has a pride in that town or area, and wants to share that with visitors. So, as you go along, you're going to get those incredible local experiences with passionate people in those areas, and we find that. Seniors who travel are doing it for a lot of different reasons, and one of the biggest reasons we hear about is education, continuing education, right? And having done trips on my own and also with a guide, I've seen both sides, and it's just incredible the depth of information and cultural enrichment you're able to get when you have a local guide in that area. You can sort of see things as you go along. I'm in Lucerne and I'm looking at the beautiful lion monument. And if people listening haven't seen that, I encourage you to Google it. It's a beautiful site just outside of Lucerne, Switzerland. And you can go look at it and it's beautiful, but being there with a guide who can tell you the whole story of why it exists makes it 100 times more enriching. And I've done that both ways. And the second time I went with a guide, I went, I can't believe I didn't know any of this stuff the first time I saw this. I just said, oh, it's a nice statue, moving on. So the educational aspect is incredibly important. And I think that absolutely comes through on our trips.
Let me ask you a quick question about the logistical aspects of it. uh, when people go, they take too many. They take too much luggage. Okay,
Hmm.
they pack for a 3 week trip, but they didn't. When they finished, they said, I didn't need all this stuff. But meanwhile, they still have these big heavy suitcases. How is that handled when you're doing a tour? In other words, like you get to the airport, and as you mentioned, somebody meets you there. What happens to your luggage as you're going through your trip? Because I think that's a very significant point.
It definitely is. And on our trips, we include hotel porterage. So as you're traveling place to place, and by the way, we haven't mentioned this yet, these are motor coach tours.
Yeah,
So your
I was going to get
luggage,
to that.
yeah, your luggage comes with you on the coach. And as you get to the hotels, we actually arrange with the hotel staff to come pick up your bags, bring them to your room for you, and same thing on the way out. Now, just like getting on a plane, there's certainly limits to how much luggage you can take. But I think a lot of our customers are really happy with the fact that really they don't have to carry their own bags from place to place. They really just have to pack and unpack and then leave it up to the team to take care of that for them.
Exactly. What I found on when I would take tours similar to yours is we would show up at a hotel, we would get out, and they would just usher us into the hotel, and someone would be there to offer us a beverage. And meanwhile, our luggage is coming in, it's being delivered up to where our room is. We're given a key by someone, and it makes your life so much easier.
That's exactly right. You're not waiting in line to check in. There's none of that. Your travel director, they're there to take care of all these arrangements, so it seems incredibly seamless for you. Um, this brings to mind a story, if you'll indulge me.
Of course,
So
I like stories.
great. So years ago, and I'd been working for this company for a while, and I thought, gosh, it would be great to take my family on a trip, and I mean my parents and my brother. And um, growing up, we didn't have a ton of money. We did a lot of road trips, but we really hadn't traveled internationally. Now, my dad had traveled internationally. I mean, he was one of those guys with the map with all the pins in it, but it was for work. And he saw himself, I think, as quite the knowledgeable, independent traveler. And I could tell he was excited to be going on this trip, but he was a little suspicious, or he thought,
Skeptical, maybe.
yeah, he was skeptical. He thought, well, I'm doing this for my son. I'd really rather do this on my own, but you know what? My son works here. He's proud of it, and so I'll go on this trip. That was sort of the vibe I was getting from my dad on the way in. And about 2 days into the trip, I could see him physically relax,
Mm.
and I could see him change, and he didn't have to worry about driving, paying tolls, finding parking. He was able to just sit and look out the window and enjoy. And he completely changed his mind by the end of the trip. He was so impressed. He never stopped talking about it. I mean, he was so impressed. He was impressed by the bus driver.
Hmm.
he towards the end of the trip, I'm not kidding about this, towards the end of the trip he disappeared for a couple hours. We wondered where he had gone. He came back. He had gone to, like a FedEx or Kinko's or something, and printed out a little certificate he had made to present to the bus driver on the last day, because he was so impressed with the way this guy was, backing up down narrow lanes in Italian
I,
villages and
I
everything.
personally have been amazed by every bus driver in these countries where the roads are so narrow, people are parked halfway into the street, and yet they still get these large vehicles
Oh,
around everything. It's just amazing.
they have to fold the mirrors in to get between buildings sometimes. I mean, I've seen it multiple
Yes.
times and I go, how are they doing this? This seems dangerous, but they're incredibly safe drivers, and it's just one less thing you have to think about and worry about.
Okay,
Um,
let's talk about the buses a little bit
yeah.
that you use. They're not like a bus that you're going to see on the streets of New York City or something like that. They're a tour bus. They're designed for this purpose with correct, and it
Oh,
makes it easier
absolutely.
to travel. And how many times do you stop on the bus on any given day? In other words, give us a little bit of like let's plan a trip to Paris. Okay. So we're going to go see some sights in Paris. We're staying at a hotel somewhere in Paris. We get in the bus and we're off. What do we do?
Well, you're going to probably have something like a panoramic tour of Paris. Paris is a huge city, of course, so
Yes.
a walking tour doesn't really work as well in a place like Paris. So you're going to drive down the grand boulevards and take a spin around the Arc de Triomphe and see all those places. And there might be stops here and there where you get out and do a little walk through an area. And in the meantime, the bus or motor coach, as we more properly call it, may drive around the corner, find somewhere to wait, and then come back and pick you up. And again, it's very, very seamless. There's no trudging through metro stations or having to hail taxis or even use, I mean, Ubers and Lyfts and things are a little easier these days, but it's still not the same as just having this service taking care of you from end to end. And that's
Hmm.
when you're kind of in a city. I think the bigger one is when you're traveling between cities. Let's say you're going from
Yes, that's
Paris to,
important.
yeah, let's say Paris to Lucerne, Switzerland. Now that's a long drive, and people are
Mhm.
often concerned. They go, "Gosh, are we just going to see the inside of a bus for hours and hours and hours?" And we break up the drives as much as humanly possible. You're never really driving for more than about maybe 2 hours at maximum before there's at least a break. If not something sightseeing, at least somewhere to get off, stretch your legs, use a nice clean restroom, get a snack, something like that. And the coaches themselves are very, very comfortable. I mean, they're all modern. We refresh them every couple of years, so they're all the newest models. And I mean, these things are really comfortable. They have air conditioning. They have, USB ports, so you can plug in all your gadgets without having to bring a converter. They even have Wi-Fi, so as you go down the road, you can even be keeping in touch with folks back home. Uh, in the coach, they have onboard restroom, and of course, audio video systems. So oftentimes, if there is a longer drive, they might put on a short documentary that will get you prepared for the next area you're going to be going to, or the travel director will be telling you stories about what you're seeing out the windows and things like that. So it's a fantastic way to travel, and extremely efficient. You're not wasting a lot of time again getting to and from train stations or hailing cabs. Or I mean, honestly, I'm a pretty adventurous guy. I like driving, but I wouldn't really want to drive in Italy, to be honest with you, especially if I'm going to big cities. If you're out in the Tuscan countryside, that's one thing, but I've seen what it's like. I've ridden in taxis in Rome, and I would rather not be the one driving in those situations, let me tell you.
Okay. I have a question, another question for you. What are some of the common misconceptions about senior travel?
But that's a great question. And I think a common misconception would be that these are very, how would I put it? These might be superficial trips. That these trips are, just skimming the surface. Hey, look, there's the Eiffel Tower. Hey, look, there's the Trevi Fountain. And of course, those things are amazing and people want to see them. But really in the last 10, 15 years, and I think our company has kind of led the way in this, they're doing much more cultural enrichment on these trips than perhaps in the past. So, for example, on a trip that goes to Italy, I was just looking at this yesterday. There's one of our trips that does Italy, and of course you're in Rome, and of course you're going to see the Colosseum, and you're going to see the Vatican, and all of those things. And if you've never been to Italy, of course those are at the top of your list that you're going to want to see. But when people are done with the trip, oftentimes the thing they talk the most about isn't the big things. They talk about the little things that they weren't expecting. So, for example, on this particular trip to Italy that we run, on the way from Rome down to Sorrento, where you stay a couple of nights down there, which is lovely, you stop off on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius. So right, looming above Naples and Pompeii, and you stop at a tomato farm. Now, some of your listeners may have been to this region, and if you have, I'm sure you remember the tomatoes. The tomatoes they grow in the volcanic soil on the slopes of Vesuvius are unbelievably delicious. They are, dare I say, explosive with flavor, to use a terrible joke. Um, but we go to a tomato farm there. We meet the family that owns the tomato farm. You can walk through and pick tomatoes right from the vines and taste them. We have lunch there. And that's the kind of uh, extra thing that you're going to get going on a trip that we do is we find these local authentic experiences that if you were just going on your own might be hard to find, or you might, maybe you can go knock on the door of a farm and say, hey, can I taste your tomatoes, but maybe maybe that might not work out for you. So I think that's one of the misconceptions, is that a tour is just sort of being led around by someone holding a flag, and it's going to kind of be bland or not exciting. And I think that's what people find they've enjoyed the most, is these smaller moments on the trip that aren't necessarily something that you booked the trip because of, but it's what keeps you coming back.
Okay, a couple of things we've touched on, and then I want to go into addressing some common concerns and challenges. But before I go into that, I'd like to talk about how it's beneficial to seniors, such as combating isolation and promoting social connection. I've been on trips before, and I know that that's very, very positive, that you get the social connection with other people. Uh, it helps you to stay active and engaged, and it's a lifelong learning process, and it helps your imagination grow, and it creates memories. Correct?
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. In fact, the quote that you started this with might be kind of illustrative for what we're going to talk about. Can you repeat that quote actually?
sure. Oh, you want me to go back in my notes? Sure, I've got it.
Well, it was so good, and I'm glad we're getting to it.
Okay, I can send it to you if you need it. Okay, a mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions.
Fantastic. Yes. And so there's so many benefits to traveling for everyone, but seniors in particular. I think I was reading about this the other day, that one of the benefits of travel, they can actually track it to enhanced cognitive function. I mean,
Yes.
being in an unfamiliar place, having to decipher languages you don't understand, having to look at a map and navigate. This is all incredible exercise for the brain. And they've shown actually that exploring new places, learning about different cultures, navigating unfamiliar environments stimulate the brain to the point that they've shown that it can delay cognitive decline and reduce the risk of dementia by quite a lot. So this is incredibly important for seniors to do. Now, not everyone can travel internationally. Maybe there's monetary or physical reasons that you can't. We do have trips domestically as well, and so just traveling to anywhere that's unfamiliar has these same benefits. Um,
That leads me into my next area I wanted to discuss, which is basically addressing common concerns and challenges, such as health considerations, mobility issues, safety and security, and then financial concerns or considerations that people should take into their planning process.
of course. Well, as I mentioned earlier, when things go wrong or when the unexpected happens, let's say, it's a lot better to have an expert in that area with you who can assist. And certainly we take many thousands of people to Europe every single year, and sometimes people get sick, sometimes people hurt themselves. And I can tell you that, and I'm not a part of this myself, but our team in Europe, seeing how they leap into action to care for our guests when something like that goes wrong is incredible. I mean, if someone has to be hospitalized, someone will come down and visit the hospital and make sure that people are being taken care of. There's always a team that's ready to jump into action if anything really serious were to happen, and it happens very, very rarely, but it does enough for me to have the experience of seeing just how well they care for our guests. um, Financial considerations, I mean, travel is not inexpensive, and it's getting more expensive. But the value of taking a package trip like this where everything's all together and you can anticipate your costs, once you put down a deposit, we don't change the price. So if the exchange rate changes or hotels get suddenly more expensive, no one's going to come to you and say, hey, actually your trip's more expensive. It's something you can depend on. um, so those were some good examples for you.
Okay. Uh, how about choosing the right tour for yourself? Some considerations uh, that you need to think about, like the group size, for example, what's included, cancellations and refunds, and accessibility accommodations. Because some people just can't, they might want to sign up for a tour with you where there's a lot of walking, but in fact, they may not be able to, they should probably not take that tour because they may not be able to walk the distances that you need to walk. Would you address that a little bit? And
Exactly.
how do you help people with directing them or guiding them to the tours that they should be taking based on them, their
Well,
age
I
and
think,
their mobility?
yeah, I think first of all, the fact that again we have 10 great people in our office with tons of experience who are happy to have these types of conversations. I guess first off, the fact that we even have people to talk to about this at all is a great benefit, rather than just go to a website, pick a trip, and you have really no idea what you're getting, right? So this is a common concern from folks, and we sell hundreds of different trips, and we have pretty good information about what trips might be good and what trips might be less good for someone with mobility issues. Now, generally, someone needs to be at least in a reasonable level of fitness, because you're going to be getting on and off a motor coach multiple times a day. You're going to be doing very, very moderate amounts of walking, because we have these are not limited only to seniors, by the way. We welcome people of all ages on our trips, but
Mhm.
largely seniors are the ones who are taking them. And we so we try to run our tours to be accessible to people of many different abilities. um, Now, if you are having if you think maybe walking up to a mile might be a little too much for you, we do have some trips that are slower paced. We actually have a great selection of river cruises, which are getting incredibly popular these days, and those I highly recommend for folks who may not be able to walk long distances, because they'll actually break up groups into different groups based on ability, obviously self-selecting, of course, but
Mhm.
they'll have a gentle walking tour for folks that maybe don't want to, hike all over the city, but then they'll do a more active one for folks that do. So there are definitely different levels, and we try to have those conversations with folks to direct them in the best way we can. There's not really a blanket answer, of course, but some countries in Europe are a little better than others, and some, like Italy, can be pretty challenging for folks. But
Yeah, because you
we'll
get
we'll have those
cobblestone streets and
conversations.
so on, and
Oh
lots of
yeah, it's
unusual curbs and
Yeah,
It's
and they could
easy
be
to trip.
steep, and
Right.
we're very, we're very dare I say, spoiled in the U.S. with all of the accommodations that are made for folks of different abilities, and Europe for many reasons is behind on that. But uh, our trips, like I said, as long as you have a reasonable amount of fitness, able to kind of get on and off the bus multiple times a day and do a little bit of walking, they really work for most people. But we certainly never ever want to take someone's money for a trip knowing that they're not going to enjoy it. So that's why we have those conversations with folks and try to direct them as best we can. That said, we're not doctors and we're not physically present, so we can't exactly test someone.
Okay.
So we do ask that people be honest with us and themselves about what they can kind of reasonably be expected to do. And I think that's just generally a good information for everyone who's traveling, is have a good think about whether you're going to be able to do the things that you want to do on that trip.
Okay. We haven't talked about price. I'm not really going to speak about prices, but I am interested in finding out the differences between high season and low season and what the advantages are to being a little bit off season. Give me,
Oh, this is
let's talk, since we've been speaking about Europe, it's a good example for us. Uh, the high season is like now. When is the earlier part of the season and the later part of the season? Are those better times to travel?
so so the answer is different from country to country, but price wise, this is best answered if we just kind of pick an example or a couple of
Okay.
examples here. So Italy is pretty much the number one destination in Europe for Americans. I think it might be tied with France, but it's something around there. So Italy is a good example. If we're talking about price, one of our most popular itineraries to Italy, it's called Great Italian Cities, and it's 9 nights. It's a great trip for first timers to Italy, and it's a nice slow paced trip too. Um, that trip is 25% less expensive in March than it is in September. So pretty significant savings out of the gate just on the tour itself. Add on to that, your airfare is also going to be less expensive. So now, March is a great time to go to Italy. Is March a great time to go to Norway? Maybe not. So that's why it kind of is a different answer depending on the destination. But if you're talking the very popular countries of Southern Europe that have relatively mild winters, I always very strongly recommend that guests who have the ability, if they, are retired and can kind of go anytime, I always recommend going in, close to the off season. So we would be saying somewhere from April to September would be peak season, and outside of that would be either the low season or shoulder season. Um, and I was looking at some stats about this, and I think this is kind of illustrative. So Italy had 10 million international visitors in July in 2024. In February, they had 3 million. So that's a huge difference. And there's in the news, everyone's probably seeing this. There's over tourism and there's protests in these major cities saying we're full. We can't take any more tourists. That's limited to certain times of the year,
And
right?
certain locations also.
And certain locations. And there's plenty of room for everybody who wants to go, just not if everyone wants to go during the same 8-week period in the summer, right? Um, France, as another example, in July of 2024. Now, France, they had the Olympics last year, so it's a little bit of an oddball one. But France last year in July had 25 million international visitors, and in February of the same year, they only had 8 million. So it's not even half as many. It's like a third or a quarter as many in those time frames. So not only are you going to have lower prices, but you're going to have far fewer crowds. And in many cases, in places like Italy, like France, and certainly Spain, you're going to have temperate weather. You're going to have nice weather. Now, maybe it'll rain a little bit. You might need to bring a jacket. But for me, and maybe not everyone agrees, but for me, I will take the trade off of weather that may not be quite as good for the lower prices and the lower crowds.
Well, also what I'm finding is on my travels and speaking to people, because of the climate conditions, I just came back from Greece and it
Right.
was 99 degrees in
Right.
Athens. So you have to take a siesta during the middle part of the day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they had closed the Acropolis because people were fainting waiting in
Right.
line to get into it. And I think that that's another advantage to going slightly off season
Well,
because the weather's
yeah, and
cooler and there aren't as many people.
certainly, and older folks are the most affected by heat. I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
it becomes unsafe at some point. The heat and the crowds. And again, I'm not here to tell anyone don't ever go anywhere in the summer. If that's the time that you can go, then going on a trip with a guide who we have all your sightseeing ahead of time, you're not stuck waiting in line at the Acropolis in 100-degree heat, right? So
Exactly.
there's no better way to do it if you are going to go in the summer than go with a guided trip like the kind that we offer.
Okay.
But yeah, heat everywhere's getting hotter. Europe's no exception. I mean, and air conditioning standards are behind. And look, I live in Portland, Oregon, and many people here just have never had air conditioning, and it's like a big industry here. People retrofitting their homes with air conditioning for the first time because it's just
Hmm.
suddenly the summers are longer and hotter than they've ever been, and Europe's the same way. And sometimes, especially in Northern Europe, hotels don't even have air conditioning because they've never needed them.
Right.
Um, so it might take a few years for these things to catch up. And in the meantime, if you're there in July and there's a heat wave, it might be pretty uncomfortable. And you can definitely avoid that by traveling in the off season. I mean, I just love Italy in the off season. People ask me all the time, "What's the best time to go to Italy?" And I say January, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I've I've been to Italy in January multiple times, and I've been to Venice and felt like I was the only one there. And then you see
Really.
pictures of Venice in the summertime, and it's wall to wall people, right? So
Yeah.
there's
I
plenty of
understand.
room for everybody. Plenty
Okay.
of room.
Uh, I think that we've covered most of the information that we need to cover. A couple of bits of catch up. First of all, uh, we post on our website your information for your company. So is that okay if we post that information, how to get a hold of people, not your personal line, but your toll free number? I mean,
Abs-
if you don't do well on this podcast, then I might pass out your phone number. I'm kidding though.
right, right.
You
No,
have to know you have to know that I'm kidding, okay?
right, right. No, absolutely. I mean, people can find us online. I know you'll post it, but it's just getours.com, getours.com. And we do have a toll free number, which I can give out. It's 800 And again, that goes right to our office here in Oregon, and you can chat with some of my amazing colleagues who uh, love to chat with people and love to help people get on a trip.
Okay, great. All right, I won't call you Jack, I'll call you Jake. I want to
Thank
thank
you.
you for I want to thank you for putting up with me, and I want to thank you for all the information that you've given us. And maybe one of these days you'll see me on your tour, and then you'll be one of the people that throws me off a tour.
We'd
I'm
love to
just
have you,
kidding.
and we would ask that you behave yourself, Ken.
Oh yeah, you don't know me well enough, Jake. I'm not one of these guys. Uh, Believe me, I was just in Greece and everybody was jumping in the water and they had their bathing suits on. I didn't have a bathing suit. I just took off my clothes and went in my underwear, and it seemed to be just fine.
Well, we're gonna see you on the news one of these days, I think.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay,
only
so
only for good things.
I'm just gonna end with one more quote, and I think this one's a pretty good one too. Traveling, it leaves you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller. And that is absolutely true because when you come back, you have stories to tell people about your trip. I don't know anybody who doesn't have those kind of stories, and they're usually good ones. What do you say to
Well,
that?
listen, when when I'm at some place with a lot of people I don't know, there's a couple things you can kind of talk about, right? You can talk about the weather, which is kind of boring. People talk about sports. I'm not the biggest sports fan. I don't really know much about it. The thing you can talk about with everybody, and you're going to have the best, most rewarding conversations, is travel. And that's been
Very
the
good
case
point.
every single time. I mean, everybody loves to talk about their travel experiences and compare and contrast and even talk about when things went wrong. It's always like a fun, how did you solve that problem kind of thing. So make yourself a great storyteller, do some traveling. It's good for you. It's good for the world, for everyone to travel. So,
Okay,
uh,
Jake, that's great.
thank,
Well,
thanks so much for
it,
having me. This has been
it's
a
my
great
pleasure,
conversation.
and thank
I
you
can't
for
believe,
taking time out of your busy day and putting up with me. Okay,
well,
and with that,
it's
go
been a
ahead.
pleasure. Thanks so much, Ken, and happy travels to you and everyone listening. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes this episode of We Are Old, Get Over It. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found our conversation both insightful and entertaining. Remember, age is a journey, not a destination. So embrace the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, and the occasional tech frustrations with a good dose of get over it attitude. Until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep getting over it. Ken out.